from the SAT number 10. This is the May 2017 USQAS test, and let's jump in. So question 1 says the main purpose of the passage is to. So this is the big picture question, the question we sort of expect that comes right after the passage. Is talking about sort of the big picture, right? What is the main purpose? This is an interesting question because here we're dealing with a literature passage, and when we're talking about the main purpose of the literature passage, it's actually a little bit more difficult to answer this than it would be for like a scientific or historical passage. And the reason why is because a lot of those scientific historical passages, they tend to sort of front end their thesis, which would have their purpose, the main focus, all of that. So usually in the title or in the introduction, you're going to get something like a thesis or at least a mention of, hey, here's the study, here's why the study is important, or here's what the study showed, etc. With the literature passage, it's a little more sprawling, so it doesn't have the structure of here's a thesis and then let's go through and prove it step by step. It's just elaborating and expanding on a scene. We have different characters interacting. So the way to solve this is I really can't think of another way to solve this than to just have a general comprehension of the text. And you need to have a good enough comprehension, not only that you know what's going on, but also that you can recognize basically when an answer choice says that something happened in the text that didn't happen. So not only that you know enough about what's in the text, we also know the passage enough to know what's not in the text. And really that's just going to require A, comprehension, and B, a pretty decent memory of what's going on. And you can do a little bit of back and forth as far as going to the text and looking to eliminate or select answer choices. But having that foundation of comprehension and then just being able to memorize or to have a good memory of what's going on, that's really what's going to help you overall for the passage. One more thing that might help you is just remembering that we always want to choose what I call the more general answer choice. And by general, I mean it makes a less specific claim. And I'm going to try to find some exercises or figure out a way to help you guys sort of be able to recognize the distinction, because I know it's not so obvious. To me, I can typically see an answer choice and be like, all right, this is definitely a general answer choice as opposed to a more specific or strong answer choice. So I want to kind of be able to put those side by side, give you some exercises so you can figure it out. But for now, for this question here, it is going to help to be able to recognize what choice sort of makes the least claim, the smallest claim. So anyway, let's jump, and we're going to jump right into the answer choices for 1. If you still don't know about the passage, I would say go back and watch the video that I did on the passage outline for this question. So answer choice A says that the main purpose of the passage is to show how an event forced the narrator to reevaluate his perspective on his childhood. So this right here, forced the narrator to reevaluate his perspective, is a pretty specific claim. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it's wrong. It could definitely be true. But for it to be true, we would need evidence in the passage that an event, for example, the event would be the meeting of the Swede and the narrator, forced him to reevaluate his perspective on his childhood, which would basically be him sort of thinking like, man, like damn, I thought my childhood was this way or whatever, or I respected the Swede so much when I was a child, but now I have a different perspective of him, or I never thought I'd have this recognition from the Swede, but now I realize that I've come up enough that he now compliments me on my books, or whatever. And that's not really something that we see in the passage at all. It's pretty much just this meeting that they have. The narrator sort of fanboys over the Swede, and the Swede basically says, yeah, I know who you are too, and then they're very excited. They go their separate way, and the narrator is still kind of fanboying after that. But we don't really see anything about him reevaluating his perspective on his childhood, and for that reason we can get rid of A. B says that the main purpose of the passage is to analyze how past experiences shape the narrator's and another character's future. So this would basically be if the narrator is sort of taking note of his past experiences with the Swede's brother or with the Swede, and he's sort of connecting it to basically how his future played out as an author, or maybe how the Swede's future played out as well. And there is a little bit of recognition about past experiences. You know, the Swede talks about basically what his mom used to say about the narrator, and they mention the brother of the Swede and how they used to interact, and they mention some of the Swede's athletic highlights back in the day at Wequakic High. But none of them really connect these past experiences to the future. So none of them really talk about how the narrator and the Swede, basically how their future was affected by these past experiences, or make any sort of connection there. So for that reason, we can also get rid of B. C says that the main purpose of the passage is to reflect upon the changes that people go through as they give up on their childhood dreams. So this is going to stand out to me here, this give up on their childhood dreams, for a number of reasons. One, you can take this or leave it, but when I'm doing a standardized test and I see something like give up on their childhood dreams, this is a pretty pessimistic worldview. It's a sort of pretty negative claim. Now, there's nothing to say that a standardized test can't sort of endorse a negative or pessimistic claim, but whenever I see an answer choice like this, I'm always skeptical and apprehensive of it. Because typically these standardized tests are just very neutral in their worldview. They're neutral in their worldview. They're not going to make controversial claims. The whole purpose of this is just to test you on your critical reading abilities, not to sort of advocate some perspective. So anything that's like basically reflect upon the changes that people go through as they give up on their childhood dreams. For there to be a passage about people giving up on their childhood dreams is a pretty sad passage, I would think. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're not going to encounter it on the SAT, but it makes it less likely. Moreover, besides that, you can take that or leave it. We can still solve this without even sort of having that little qualification. Basically, the passage doesn't talk about anybody giving up on their childhood dreams. So the Swede was this great athlete at Weehawken High, and we don't have any evidence that he's this great athlete now. So we might think, okay, maybe he gave up on his dreams, but that's assuming too much. It's assuming that he had a dream of being an athlete. It's assuming he's not an athlete now, which the passage never explicitly says. So for that reason, we don't have any evidence to choose C. We should get rid of C. D says that the main purpose of the passage is to describe an accidental meeting that reveals the narrator's relationship with the character. And this right here is the only answer choice remaining, and it is going to be our correct answer choice. But I want to point out to you again what I said before, which is just how general this is. Describe basically means you just go through, you just talk about what happened, this accidental meeting. And what does it say that this meeting does? It reveals the narrator's relationship with the character. That's just such a general claim, to reveal the narrator's relationship with the character. It's just basically, here's a scene that shows them interacting and you get to see what their relationship is a little bit. It's not making too strong a claim. For example, like C is talking about people who give up their childhood dreams, or B is talking about how an experience shaped their future, or A is talking about how basically the narrator is reevaluating his whole perspective on his childhood. D is basically saying, yeah, two guys, they met, and then we got to see what their relationship was like through that meeting. It's a very general answer choice, and so because we can eliminate A, B, C, and then just end up with D, and because D is so general, we should feel pretty confident that D is the correct answer choice, which it is for question number 1.